I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Chrissy DeBar. You're watching Black T News. Hello, welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Chrissy DeBar, and today we're going to be talking about some trends that I think MAGA out there, the MAGA world, needs to pay attention to and really not get too cocky. Folks are talking about there was a special election in Pennsylvania that there was a state senator's seat, was a special election seat, and it didn't go well. For Republicans, and it's a really big Republican area. Trump won it by a lot, and so the Democrats won. And Trump had to end up pulling back Elise Stefanik, who's supposed to Stefanchik, who's had leadership in the Congress, and so she's supposed to end up being like the UN ambassador. And Trump has decided to pull that back, and we have such a slim margin of people in Congress, and they don't want to risk, losing more folks, and they want reliable people there, which is one of the reasons why you didn't see a lot of more people pulled out for the administration, including people who are like, why aren't there more Black people with different roles? Because there was a lot of very loyal Black Republicans to Trump, but they're like actually doing work in the Congress, and one person's in the Senate, and they couldn't be pulled or had other aspirations. Like Byron Donalds obviously wanted to run for governor, and that's why he didn't get anything in the White House. He could have if he wanted to. But anyway, there's some issues, and I think there's some policy things on the horizon that could not be great for Trump, and just some little quirks that could really rub people the wrong way, and we'll get to that. I also want to talk about, and I'm so sorry to talk about the subject again, but I'm not going to talk about Rachel Zegler, but I saw a video from Rachel Lindsay about Snow White saying that it should have never been remade anyway. And I thought it's just interesting. I saw Ben Shapiro talking about it. I'm like, do they really not know who this person is? I'm not surprised that they don't know who that is, but I'd be surprised if they never talked about her. Rachel Lindsay is the person who got Chris Harrison fired from The Bachelor. And I covered that controversy at the time. So I don't listen to Rachel's podcast or anything often, or usually ever. I think the last time I listened to it was when Larry Elder was on there, but her reasons are interesting, and I want to address them as someone who there's a lot of Disney adults who are enthusiasts and who say like, oh, the Snow White was my favorite film. I'm not saying it was my favorite Disney film, but I was, attached to it when I was young. And I think a lot of people, as I have been mentioning throughout this period of this film being in the media, is that a lot of people just don't understand those sort of morals and those values. So I got to talk about it. So, and we'll touch on some other things as well. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com to get different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it just costs a stream, run my site, all the good stuff so you guys can support. I appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that's available at blacktnews.com, like different mugs and different t-shirts that we have available at the website. So go ahead and check out those things. You guys can also check out some of my books that are available on Amazon. There's a link in the description that'll take you to a page with some of my books on there. And most of them are also available for Kindle Unlimited. All my fiction books, my nonfiction books, you do actually have to purchase, but you get them in ebook. blending the words together, ebook or paperback. But I got lots of good stuff. Like, of course, God is blatantly against abortion, and it's one of my obviously nonfiction books. And then I've got things like Super Kid and Super Kid 2. If you still want to get the kiddos in your life, a cool chapter book, since March is reading month, though we're almost out of March. But you know what? I'm an author, so every month is reading month, and I'm going to encourage you guys to read every month, every day. So it's just a pitch. Anyway, it's Friday. Hope you guys have cool plans. Apparently it was already spring break. You're so out of touch with that kind of stuff when you're not in school. And so I just found out the other day that my nieces and nephews were out of school. I'm like, oh, but they got to go back next week. But hopefully if you were entertaining the kiddos, that you had they didn't drive you too crazy. But I don't have any I have a baby shower to go to tomorrow. I guess that's kind of the big thing on the weekend. We got some babies that are about to be born, so it's very nice. Cute little girl dresses to give away. Anyway, let's start off with some Trump stuff. So it has been announced that Donald Trump pulled the nomination of Elise Stefanik, and she's been a very vocal Trump supporter. And that's one of the reasons why she got into leadership, because some people were questioning even some of her votes, because wasn't like the most conservative person, but she was very vocal and pro MAGA, whatever. And so she got into leadership, and so she was nominated for ambassador to the UN. But the House has such slim margins, and that's not new information. It was already slim when he started nominating people and pulling them out of, Congress or whatever. So they're going to keep her in. So one special election that's going on is in the seat that Mike Waltz was in, who we've been talking about the past couple of days, because he is the one who he's a national security advisor who was on that group chat and Signal, who accidentally I guess it wasn't an accident, but it was an accident. He did invite, it was not intentional that he invited Goldberg, but he did do it. Jeffrey Goldberg to their chat. So there was a journalist in the chat of all these Trump administration people as they were talking about, an attack that was imminent on the Houthis. So his seat is competitive, and they're running an election, and it shouldn't be competitive. And according to Ron DeSantis, he had talked about this a couple of days ago because he was asked about it, and he said this isn't indicative of the Trump administration, but it's just indicative on the candidate. And so who won the primary. But Randy Fine has been warring with people because, if you recall, which we covered and talked about a couple weeks ago, there were some Republicans in Florida who were like warring with Ron DeSantis because they were trying to pass a bill on immigration that would have done some damage and would have like removed certain powers away from like the governor's position and like into agriculture. And they were trying to say it was a tough bill, but it wasn't a tough bill that had any teeth, and it did some damaging things. And DeSantis is like, I'm not going to sign that. And at first he wanted to have a special session called, and they didn't want to do that. So he was, warring with Republicans in his own state. And Randy Fine was caught up in some of that mess. So he's by no means I don't know, the kind of championing Republican that you kind of want to maybe send to Congress, I guess. And maybe that's a problem. But the left is revved up because they are upset because they lost, and it is hard to get people involved in special elections, period, because people are trained to go out and do the midterms, and they're trained to do the general elections. But even general elections, that's when they really go out. A lot of people don't even participate in midterm elections. I think we've seen maybe a different kind of trend as of past couple of years or whatever, but with numbers kind of being, I don't know. I was about to say because Gretchen Whitmer's numbers when she won in 2018, they weren't. I think it was just a couple of thousand more than like Hillary Clinton got, but I think Hillary Clinton's lesser numbers was more about people who didn't want to turn out for her. But it was we've seen some big midterm turnouts, but as far as special elections, you know, I guess maybe just take some education with the voters and making them passionate. And the losers are very passionate, but they should not lose a seat in Florida. I'm not saying they won't. I'm saying they shouldn't lose it. uh, and it'll be bad, not just because maybe it'll be a trend indicative of where maybe the future midterms are going. I think it's too early to kind of tell, but it is just messed up in the terms of power and holding power in the House. And every vote counts. It's very slim pickings, you know? You can't have a lot of people decide to not vote a certain way. And everybody's got to pretty much be together in order to pass anything in the House because it's such a slim margin. So they can't afford for the Democrat to win that seat. And there's a lot of money being poured into that seat from all over the place. And it's a good opportunity for them, but it shouldn't be anywhere near the realm of this possible candidate being able to lose.
As a candidate that's running there now jeopardize that seat, making it more competitive in what's historically a safe Republican district?
I guess we'll see, right? What I will tell you this, regardless of the outcome in that, it's going to be a way underperformance from what I won that district by in 22 and what President won it by in November. They're going to try to lay that at the feet of President Trump. That is not a reflection of President Trump. It's a reflection of the specific candidate running in that race. And President Trump, if he were on the ballot in the special election, he would win by 30 points, no question. So the liberal media in Washington and the political press, they're going to try, if this doesn't work out as well, they're going to try to weaponize that against the president. And just as somebody that's been around the block here in Florida on this stuff, I can tell you it's a candidate specific issue. I think the district is so overwhelmingly Republican that there's literally, it was almost impossible for someone with an R by their name to lose that district. So I would anticipate Republican candidate is still going to be successful. Do I think that they will get even close to the margins that I received or President Trump received? No. Is that a reflection on the president? Absolutely not. It's a reflection of the candidate that's running in that race.
So I think DeSantis there is mostly right, maybe like 75% or something. I think he's correct that it is an issue with the candidate. Like I just said, there was a beef going on with Randy Fine and some of the Republicans regarding immigration, and that is a very important topic to the country as a whole, but specifically to Republicans. So there's that bad kind of beef, and now you have to turn around and rally around this guy and be like, okay, everybody go out for this guy that we've been trashing because he's not been great for the past, couple weeks. So I think it is indicative of the candidate, but it is indicative also of Trump. And because people are revved up to go and take him down. And if they can get this victory over Trump and, end up taking a seat or whatever in the House, then you continue to slow up Trump's agenda. And so you are fighting against him. So it is backlash against Trump. It is backlash there. So the amount of enthusiasm from the Democrat side and the money coming in for the Democrat side, them being willing to fight that seat so much for that seat in that special election, and it to be what it appears to be right now close, I think that is, a pushback against Trump. Now, as far as like what Republicans think, I think he's correct that is on the candidate, because the candidate has to build their own coalitions and stuff. And if Trump was on the ballot, I think people would go out and Trump, and if it was DeSantis, people would go out for DeSantis. Would they get like crazy kind of numbers during a special election? People they don't go out they tend to go out in the ways that they probably should for a special election. So maybe no one would get the margins that they get during general elections and midterm elections. But is Randy Fine gonna like poll as well or do as well as DeSantis would or Trump would? No. No, of course not. So I think the opposition is fueled by we don't like Trump, we want to stop Trump's agenda. And then this candidate, as far as the Republicans, he has to stand alone. Now, Trump is like doing call town halls and other stuff to try to get people to go out and support this candidate, because it is important to Republicans maintaining their majority and being able to get Trump agenda stuff done. So, so why is that not exciting Republicans? I don't know. Or letting them know that it's like necessary, like you have to go ahead and you have to participate, you have to be there, they need you there. I don't know, we'd have to ask the Floridians. But a lot of people, they don't check in when it's not election time. There's some people, they only start to look at the candidate when it's like the debate times. And they're not watching the news, and they're not reading the news, and they're not looking at policy, and they're not going to the websites. Like if you're watching this, you're one of the weirdos who like to consume media about the news. And there's a lot of people out there who like to consume media on the news, but a lot of people really just check out. And a lot of people don't know even when there is a special election. So there's an education issue. So there's a lot of folks out there who probably would want to protect Trump's agenda, but they don't understand how important it is. And they're not going out there seeking to know how important it is. Like, you have to find them and tell them and convince them to get up and do it. Because there's enough drama around November time, September, October, November, and it is March. It is March. We just had like a whirlwind of an election. People get sick of the ads on TV. Oh my gosh. I don't see them as much as I used to because I don't have cable. So the only time, and I got rid of I pay for YouTube. I pay for YouTube subscription because when I started doing that, and it was an election time, and I was like, I'm done with this. I do not want to keep seeing ads for this stuff. And then I just got used to not seeing ads. So, so I don't see ads from that. Like the most I would see ads were like mobile games, or sometimes like editing software or whatever on your phone. They'll have ads while things are rendering or whatever. That's probably the most I would see ads. And if I would go over to my parents' house or something and watch something online, there'd be a ton of ads, or I had to watch something on like Hulu or whatever, a ton of ads. But people get sick of that stuff. They when it's not election time, they don't want to check an election stuff. So they're gonna have to overcome that hurdle and rev up that bass and let them know that they have to show up. But it is hard when you're not crazy about the candidate. So I think DeSantis is both right and about Randy Fine as an individual, and it'll be a reflection of him if he loses. But I also think that if he does lose, I think that's also a reflection on how passionate the Democrats are about wanting to stop Donald Trump. But they get money sent in from all over the place to win different seats. And like when they'd run somebody to run against Mitch McConnell and just have all this money like flowing into Kentucky or whatever, and it just wasn't gonna do anything. Like, you're not taking him out. But Age is finally gonna get him, though. He's senator from Kentucky, right? Yes, I just want to double check. I was pretty sure it's Kentucky. So there's that. there's that, and people are readily understanding that Elise was pulled from the UN position because they're concerned about the House. As I already mentioned, there are folks out there saying, how come there's not more Black people in the Trump administration? And what about some of those, Black Republicans, and they didn't get anything, and they're not in the administration? And I told you guys this at the time, but people, got things that they wanted, or there were different understandings that they had with Donald Trump. Like Byron Donalds, very vocal advocate for Donald Trump, very vocal advocate. He obviously wanted to run for governor, and he has like announced, and he's running for it. So, and Trump has already endorsed him. So, he didn't want to be in the cabinet. Tim Scott didn't want to. I don't remember the reason why he didn't want to be in the cabinet. I don't know if he's made that public, but I was told the reason. I just don't remember it. And other Republicans, there's other Republicans, Black Republicans that basically came together and was like pro Trump, wouldn't entertain anybody else. And we couldn't pull a ton of people from the House, and we pulled too many. Now these guys put some of them back. And it is funny, and I'm sorry, I'm the only person I've heard who kind of thinks it's funny that at that story with the Signal chat, man, that he got pulled, Walls got pulled from the House, was made national security advisor, and the first kind of like scandal of the Trump administration is him just doing something that's just silly. So, I think that if people are too cocky about the midterms, it's going to be an issue. And I think there's a lot of it's going to depend on the economy, I think, but it's not just the economy. Like Trump announced that he wants tariffs on cars that aren't built in the United States. And I think only like 2 companies, like one of them being like Tesla, is like the only ones who like do everything like in the country. Like a lot of car companies that maybe they'll do some work here, but a lot of them they'll do stuff overseas. Though the unions are very happy about it, the prices of the cars are obviously going to go up, or they ought to go up if there's tariffs. And Trump ought to know that, because he told the car manufacturers that basically you better not let the prices go up. But if their costs go up, why wouldn't the cars go up, and then that get passed on the consumer? Like, where else would that money difference come from? So will it be more jobs in the United States? Sure. And that's the long-term good thing that you can bring up and focus on. But at the same time, it's going to be more expensive for consumers, and impart a bit of pain. So I've mentioned I'm not crazy about these tariffs. I think it lends to some instability in the markets and other things like that. And I just I'm not fond of it. And I think he should kind of pick a lane and stick with it, and not a lot of this continuous back and forth. I know sometimes he uses many times he uses the tariffs as negotiation tactics, but he does genuinely really like them. And I think we really, 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 really need a strong economy. And that's a thing that people are going to need to fall back on when it comes to the midterms if they want to keep and grow a majority. Because Trump isn't so nice to a lot of folks. And if you recall, a lot of people in the midterms, the sentiment was, there was this wave in 2018. Just think back with me in 2018. There was this wave of like, I don't know, of friendly, moderate white women that Democrats were trying to push through and get all these victories with. And that's, when like my Congresswoman Haley Stevens won, and you had I don't know if I can't remember if she was my congresswoman. I don't think she was my congresswoman at the time, but she won a seat. She's my congresswoman now. That's when Alyssa Slotkin got in, and other women came in, And so they just ran like this particular archetype, and it was like the year of the woman. That's like what they were really pushing. That's when like Governor Gretchen came in and she won, and it was they knew that she was going to win like really quick that night. Like apparently Bill Schuette's team, who he ran against her in Michigan for governor, and his team like told John James's team like, okay, so we're expecting an early night, just so you know, with the results coming in. Like they knew that they were going to lose. So they had all these women running, and it was women against Trump basically, and there was a lot of sentiment like Trump is mean, and we need someone who's not mean to kind of be at the helm. And he wasn't up on the chopping block for another 2 years, but they wanted to flip seats, and not have total like Republican control or whatever. So there was pushback, and there was a lot of Democrat wins. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it wasn't great. And by the way, we never got like a big red wave in, what was that, 2022? No. Was that 20? Yeah, I guess 2022 we never got like a big beautiful red wave. That never really happened either. So I want Trump to be successful because I'm an American and I live in America, and I want my country to do well. Like I want the economy to do well. I want the people to do well. I want the government to be efficient and to know that the country as a whole is going to last a long time, that our children aren't going to have to pay off debts from dumb things that we did or our parents did or whatever. Like I want general good things for our country. I don't understand people who just want America to fail. You can, want your politicians to their policy agendas to be stalled because they have bad ideas and people to be replaced. But some people hate Trump so much they legitimately want America to fail. Like a lot of people, including me, will play clips from Bill Maher when he says sensible things, but I recall when he wanted the economy to crash because it would hurt Trump. So there's people who genuinely feel that way and want the country to fail. But I want the country to do well. But there's a lot of people who just see Donald Trump as being mean and petty and all kinds of different stuff. And that's what's going to weigh on their heart. And they're not going to want to vote for him and his agenda. And if they say the Republicans are cruel, then they're going to, not vote or vote for the other team. And in 2018, it was apparent that Trump had a suburban white woman problem. And that would be conversations amongst a lot of Republicans. They'd be like, well, I'm a suburban white woman and I love Trump. Okay, glad for you. I'm a black woman and I vote for Trump, but obviously I'm in the minority there. Like I'm a very unusual standout in my demographic. Okay. And I was privy to internal polling that different parties did, including like the RNC, and people were aware of the fact that he had a problem with women, especially suburban women. And some of Trump's folks, Brad Parscale for example, would go on TV and say, well, we're not seeing that in the data, and we just kind of lie about what was upcoming, and people had a false sense of security. And they're like surprised when he has a problem with white suburban women. So I bring that up because there's a trend going on right now where people are just using AI. Maybe they're all doing it on X. I don't know. Because there's a lot of people doing it. But they're using AI to make different events and things like Studio Ghibli. And if you're not familiar with Studio Ghibli, it's a studio in Japan. They do anime, like these really cool like animated movies like Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, and just really iconic films and stuff. If you like anime. They're actually not. I really like anime, but I'm not like a huge Studio Ghibli person though. And funny enough, but the White House put this out. And I mean the White House. Not Prison Mitch, not Right to Bear memes, not Jack Posobiec or Babylon Bee. The White House put this out. And so if you're unfamiliar with this image, because a lot of people might just be like, oh my gosh, it's so mean they're deporting that Hispanic mother or something and she's crying. There's a story behind that. So they tweeted that out. It was a retweet of this image here of this woman who's crying. And she is a fentanyl dealer. And Virginia Barosa Gonzalez, a previously deported alien felon convicted of fentanyl trafficking, was arrested by ICE in Philadelphia after illegally re-entering the U.S. She wept when taken into custody. So I'm glad that they arrested her and deported her. I'm very happy about that. And I think that they should talk about their victories because this is what people want to see. People want to see more deportations. They're not on pace to do the biggest mass deportation in history right now at the rate that they're going. They're going to have to rev it up for sure. But I like that. But this is I'm not upset about it personally, but I'm seeing the reaction that it's happening, that some folks are seeing, and they think it's gross or kind of too mean or just so too unserious. And maybe for me, the issue that I contend with is that it's a little too unserious. Like, you're the White House, you don't need to be on trend, I guess, in the meme world and stuff. Like, they can do a clever thing here or there, and maybe it's one thing when it's the campaign. Like, if it was Team Trump, like Team Trump posts all kinds of radical stuff. But when you're talking about the White House, I just think there's better ways to convey yourself when people want to feel like you are the adults in the room. And I know a lot of adults are using the AI and having fun with this filter, but this is just kind of giving me the vibe of something that suburban white women wouldn't be crazy about, even with her history of being a drug dealer, fentanyl that has taken the lives of so many Americans, even unknowingly, because they'll lay stuff with the fentanyl and people will have overdoses. So it's very tragic and evil what this woman is doing and participating in. And she had the nerve. But someone else could have made the meme. Someone from like within the Trump world or whatever could have texted someone else to make it, and and Trump could have liked it or something, and we would have been like, that's Trump. Or if he retruth this. But it coming out of the White House, I'm not crazy about it. I'm not like mad about it, but I'm more concerned about the repercussions if they continue to do stuff like this. And how it's gonna play into people's mind. Someone in the comments said my dad is tripping about it, meanwhile choosing not to see the reason why people feel like Trump was our best hope. People are funny, man. Like, there was one person who said, it was a woman who talked about how they didn't like Trump and they thought he was too mean, like with his approach and the things that you talk about and stuff. And this was maybe midway through his presidency, maybe around the midterms or whatever. And they weren't like a white woman. It was a woman. And to me, I just knew this person, and I'm just like, the people that you hang around with and love very deeply are kind of wild as far as some of the things that they say and sometimes how they'll treat people. And Trump is like where you draw the line. And I just, was flabbergasted that they thought he was kind of too mean. And I'm like, you seem like you're okay with mean. Like it can't bother you that much. But when it comes to their politicians, you do want people to be held to a different standard. And I just feel like it's not adult enough in the room. There are also issues though with immigration, with ICE, where um there's have been stories about people who were like near getting their paperwork together, or people who, there's a story that ProPublica put out. Now I've just kind of read about it. ProPublica has issued some wild things that have not been true, so you can take it with a grain of salt, and I am, until I look more into it. But they were talking about a man who was picked up, and he was like arrested, but he was a US citizen. And so it took him like a minute to kind of explain and whatever. And Robbie Soav, I think, I can't think of his, I can think of his name, I don't know how to pronounce it. He had retweeted and talked about like, this is why it's important that we have due process, and the government should have to prove that you don't belong here, not that you prove that you do belong here or whatever. And you run into issues. And I just want to make sure that they're doing everything top tier, because they have so many enemies that are trying to take them down. They have to do everything right. And I know that's not a realistic expectation. People are going to make mistakes. Like there was a big Signal chat mistake the other day. But to the best of your abilities, you have to try to do what's right all the time. And from experience, I know that sometimes you get people with Border Patrol, they can be like super annoying or whatever. I mean, back in the day, like even like crossing the Canadian border, it can be really annoying. And when I wasn't there on the trip, but my dad would go to an Indian reservation in Canada. And so he took my older siblings, and they got detained at the Canadian border, and they separated him and my sisters and my brother for a while, and was basically trying to get my siblings to confess that he was kidnapping them. And just my dad hated going through customs and all that stuff and dealing with those folks. And my sister Gina, she just had a straight attitude with them, because she's just like, why are you keeping me from my dad? Like, no, he didn't kidnap me. Yes, my mom knows that I'm here. Like, are you stupid? It's like, so she had an attitude with them for sure. But one time I was driving to a Comic-Con, and I made the wrong turn in Detroit, and there's Ambassador Bridge that leads you over. And so I was just kind of pulling it. I started pulling in that way, but I'm like, I obviously can't go to Canada. And so I just tried to pull into the parking lot when you first come in and like turn around, and then they pulled me over. And then they start asking questions, and I'm like, I clearly came in and just directly turned in. I didn't go through the bridge. I didn't come from over the Canadian side. I clearly didn't go into the Canadian side. I'm just literally turning around, and they started asking questions. And it was me and my sister Katrina were in the car, and they're like, where are you going? And we're like, we're going to a Comic-Con. Like, you're going to a Comic-Con? Like they didn't believe us. And we're like, yes, we're press, because we were doing our Gorgeous Geek thing back in the day. And we're like, yeah, we have press badges. And they're like, you guys like comic books? And like, they didn't, like, our story was absurd. Like, first of all, who would make up that story? we got turned around going to Comic-Con. Why would we make up that story? What? And we're like, there's literally comic books in the car. Literally comic books in the car. And then they're like, "What's that on the floor?" And we're like, "That's dirt." And he's like, "It was acting like it could be drugs or whatever." So these folks can be really annoying. Period. And so I'm not surprised that I'm hearing that there are screw ups with ICE and other things, but they gotta they gotta be impeccable as much as possible, because you're going to hear good stories about them getting dangerous people out of the country. And again, they're still not going at the rate that they need to be like the biggest mass deportation in history. They're not going at that kind of pace right now. And a lot of like the big numbers that first happened were people who already had like orders to go, but I guess Biden administration didn't do anything yet. But they got to rev that up if they want to kind of meet that. But there's going to be stories that are pushed and put on TV and ads, and you know, and talked about on campaign trails and whatever, you know, like think of how many sob stories you heard about the abortion issue, stories that weren't even true, inaccurate or whatever. I mean, think about the dumb stories that they pushed about the woman who I forget what major news organization pushed it, but there was a woman, maybe CNN. I wrote a story about it. Let me go to my website really quick. But there was a woman who got charged because she had her baby early and she panicked and wouldn't take it out of the toilet. And so she had got charged. They didn't end up indicting her, so she wasn't going to go to jail or going on like a serious trial or anything like that. But they tried to make it seem like, I don't know, that was it somehow related to abortion bans. And uh it was crazy. It was CNN. Mother, the headline on Black Teen News, I wrote about it. Mother who left her baby to die in the toilet is CNN's new pro-choice poster child. So they would make the craziest stories about that. So just think about how they're going to take stories about people who were wrongfully detained. Or there was a story I read the other day about a man who was vacationing to Puerto Rico vacationing for his honeymoon, and his wife was in the process of getting all of her paperwork together, and so they like detained her. And I'm like, well, they just detained her for a few hours. It's like, no, it was like it was a long time that they detained her. And like he didn't know where she was at first when they took her. So I'm like, okay, that the stories don't sound great. So they have to do better. And I know that you're gonna get people screwing up, and I think overall that they're doing a good job. I don't want to, you know, totally besmirch, you know, ICE, and I really respect what they do. I respect law enforcement and all these folks who keep us safe and, you know, make sure our country keeps spinning. But everybody's got to be held accountable, and people make errors, and we can understand that, but folks got to hold them accountable when they do. So anyway, just a little warning for you guys how the midterm is going to probably pop up, but I don't think things like this earns him more votes. I don't. And I just think they ought to be careful. I think they ought to be careful with this kind of stuff, but that's my warning. Especially if cars are about to get more expensive. And other things are going to get more expensive because of in the at least a short term due to tariffs. So we need everything firing on all cylinders. Anyway, before I talk about this Rachel Lindsay conversation, I do want to mention that yesterday I was on Twitter, which is X, I'm sorry. So Twitter's still such a better name. Sorry. And David Wood posted a video of him hanging out with Alex O'Connor, who's Cosmic Skeptic. And I've talked about these folks many a time. And so the reason why they're all together in this video, they're celebrating Alex's birthday. But Ruslan, who's a Christian rapper, but he has a big YouTube channel where he talks about apologetics and gospel and just things that are Christian related, pop culture, if it's related to the gospel, like touches that or whatever. But also What Do You Meme is on there, and David Wood. So they were all together because they're going to this conference, and David Wood is going to debate Cosmic Skeptic. So this just brought joy to my heart. So I just was going to go, I'm going to play this. It's about a minute, 30 seconds.
Alex, we got you stuck.
You seriously messed up the birthday song, man?
Did I mess it up? Happy birthday to you. Okay, so.
Dude, I'm kidding.
We got you,
Bloody hell, man. This is too much. Thank you.
and a cake. You gotta look at the gifts. This is my favorite.
Has it got Jesus on?
It does not. It has word for word identical on it. Let's open it up.
The word for word identical, if you're unaware. Wes Huff, who went on Joe Rogan's podcast, was talking about the original, like, transcripts of the book of Isaiah that was found in like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so Joe Rogan had asked, well, what's like the difference between them? And there's like, he said they're like word for word identical. And so then Alex put out a video about it, and this other guy, Dan McKellen, put out a video about it. People replied to Cosmic Skeptic because they tried to and Dan, because they tried to really show up the differences, and a lot of the differences that you would find are like grammatical things, like contextual wise, like there's no difference. Like Ruslan even had Dan McKellen on his show, and he's like, so if he had said it's 99.9%, like he wouldn't have had an issue with that. And so he claimed no. I'm like, so you're trying to make it out like there's all these big differences, but if it was, he said 99.9% the same, it wouldn't have been an issue. So there's quite a few people who had replied to Alex O'Connor's video about that, and Wes Huff did end up replying. And so Wes Huff was thinking of an actual quote from like a biblical scholar, someone who looks into the historical text or whatever, and they were amazed about like the word for word stuff. So it wasn't even like technically kind of his quote that he was going through, and he admitted that he should be more precise in his language, but they're pretty much the same. So that's why he made the joke about the word for word identical.
Be careful. Oh, this looks amazing.
It's a tiramisu cake.
Dude, you didn't have to do that. It's crazy. Thank you so much.
And then there's some goodies in there. Some I think some guitar strings. For the and some picks. I think there's some picks. One of my favorite books. I don't know if you ever read it. I figured it's some
No, I haven't actually.
Traditional yerba mate. I know you guys big tea guys in Britain.
For sure, man. I used to be a salesman.
Yeah?
For tea and coffee, yeah, professionally. That was my thing. Oh, and that's is that Glenn's book? No.
Yes, Glenn Scrivener's book.
Yeah,
Glenn Scrivener's book.
Yeah, some guitar picks.
You told me you were getting some John MacArthur commentaries.
I was thinking about it, and then I figured like Calvinism is a little too far, even though it overlaps with his determinism. You know what I mean? Have you read these movies?
That's so kind.
So great for you here on your birthday.
Thank you.
How's that, bro?
Yeah. I forgot it was my birthday, so that's a nice.
Okay.
And so this is Ruslan trying to bribe Alex O'Connor into converting to Christianity.
That's it, just
with some
cake and
tiramisu,
You
and
gotta
some
show. I
books.
mean, this cake is
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
We're not supposed to have any outside food here, so we gotta like eat this at some point. But this is like my favorite cake.
Yeah. So the birthday kid was the kid in the black. So I'm just blessed to see it, because again, I had told you guys that when I went to the White House, I actually met Alex O'Connor. He was not at the White House, but while I was before we got into line, because it was a little too early and it was cold outside, so we went to a coffee shop, and Alex O'Connor happened to be there. And he's from the UK, I'm from Michigan. We happened to be there at that time, and I I, you know, asked him like, hey, I was sad that, you know, at DebateCon that you weren't going to debate David Wood, in that, you know, the cancellation. So, well, it wasn't canceled, but Alex had pulled out of it due to security concerns. And so I asked, was he, you know, going to have the debate, you know, and he's like, well, we're thinking about something, maybe something virtual. You know, but he was open to me, at least the conversation came off, or he was open to having that conversation. But at the time he wasn't crazy about having it with David, because and he had mentioned he didn't like some of the backlash after he decided to not join. So David has spoken up for him in the past, as far as like him not talking about Islam and really covering it, because he's like, one, if you're an atheist, why do you want to be a martyr? So I kind of get it that way. But two, he's a young man in the UK, and if the adults in the room basically don't want to stick up and save their civilization from like radical Islam, then why should this young kid have to stick out his neck to do it if the adults who could actually do something aren't going to go? Basically, his work would be in vain if other folks don't step up and do something, and it shouldn't be all on this young man to save the nation. So I didn't want to bother explaining. That was a lot to kind of explain, but I just said, well, I just thought it would be really interesting if you debated David, because David was an atheist, and the topic they're supposed to debate was did Jesus claim to be God? And I said he was an atheist, and so when he was in prison, he met a guy named Randy, and who was a Christian. And by the way, Randy turned himself in. So the Lord probably told him to do that, but he turned himself in and met David. And so they debated about Christianity, because David thought it was stupid or whatever, but Randy could debunk like everything that he said. So it brought David on a quest to try to destroy Randy and what he believed. And then he ended up finding out that the Bible was reliable, the Bible was true, and a lot of the things that he believed weren't true. And so he became a Christian, and then he ended up becoming best friends with this Muslim named Nabil. And one thing that they'd have to debate is whether Jesus claimed to be God. And so Nabil ended up defining that that was correct, and that Jesus did really die on the cross. And he, you know, based on the reliability of the gospel, which is reliable, you know, Jesus did seem to actually rise from the grave, and the standards that he had to hold Christianity to, Islam could not meet up to those standards. So he ended up converting as well. And so Alex was like, yeah, he's a pretty interesting guy. I said, he is the most interesting conversion story that I've ever heard in my life. And so I believe that, you know, I was, you know, there to kind of encourage and push that. And Ruslan, if you guys are unfamiliar with who's who, so that's Ruslan right there. And Alex is the one with his head furthest down. So Ruslan has his own huge platform. Alex has like over 1 million followers on YouTube, and he's a atheist. He's talked to a lot of Christians and had a lot of conversations with folks. The black guy there is What Do You Meme, which is funny because I wonder what they all talked about, because I saw a video from What Do You Meme the other day. There are 3 different videos I saw. He did a series like debunking Alex O'Connor, because Alex O'Connor tried to debunk a Christian guy talking about the Bible and slavery, and the differences between like chattel slavery and like, does the Bible actually like condone slavery? And Alex believed that it did. And so What Do You Meme did like a 3-part series debunking Alex, and he like destroyed him. So I just wondered what kind of conversation they had, because I would have been like, bro, did you see my videos? Because that one you did was whack. And Alex had some pretty, he seems to be a pretty smart guy, and he was a very nice guy when I met him, but that video was whack. If you haven't seen it, please remember this. Go look up what do you meme on YouTube, and look up his slavery video when he's addressing, there's 3 of them, addressing Alex O'Connor. There's a playlist of it. So it's well worth the watch. I watched that, I think, last Saturday for the first time. Well worth watching. What Do You Meme has some good content. It's mostly like Christian content and stuff, but he has addressed some pop culture stuff, and has criticized like the right-wing Christians and some of the stuff that they push. And like he said some stuff about exposing like Candace Owens and has done some stuff on Andrew Tate and other things. But he makes some good content. I don't follow him religiously, but he does some good stuff. And the guy at the end of the video is David Wood, who I said has one of the most incredible conversion stories I've ever heard. And I love his story. I love the story with his friend Nabil, who's went on to be with the Lord, but he did convert from Islam. And David has a very kind of dark sense of humor because he doesn't like have emotions or whatever, but he's like a psychopath. But it's just incredible what the Lord has done in his life. But it brings me joy that this debate's going to happen. It might happen last night if I'm not mistaken. They're not going to post it on they're not going to post the debate, I think, for like a solid week is what Ruslan said, and they could both like post it on their social media. So I don't know if I'm not sure if it happened yet, and I'm not sure how it went. I would assume that David had a good time with the topic, because I don't really know how Alex can make a good argument that he didn't claim to be God. I mean, people will point to John, and then the argument might be like, well, John is too late, and just kind of destroy the reliability of the Gospels or whatever. But I think that's kind of a different argument. but there's a good video by Wes Huff talking about how like the book of Matthew like makes the strongest kind of case for was Jesus God, because they say it in their Jewish accent as just like there's different things that Jesus does that the Bible talks about in the past that Jesus fulfilled as something that God does. So yeah, it seems like a pretty solid W that a Christian should be able to handle. But Alex is a smart guy. But what makes me very happy about them sitting down and them coming together to celebrate Alex's birthday, you know, he's there to debate David. Like they're there to do something like adversarial, but they're sitting down, they're having conversation, and they're getting to know each other and building hopefully friendships, because you know they've talked about each other online, they've criticized each other online. I don't know if he's ever criticized like David, but I don't know if Cosmic Skeptic has, but they've criticized him and so on. So to me, it's good that they're sitting down, they're having these conversations, they're establishing relationships, because if you want to really impact someone's life and show them what it's like, not just to talk about the gospel is one thing. Like Alex knows a lot about the gospel. He has, you know, his worldview that's skewing, I think, certain perceptions of it or whatever. But it's one thing to read about it, but it's another to feel it and experience it. And you have to at some point experience the gospel through the followers of Christ and to build relationships and to know like, hey, these are really good people who are following it. Like maybe there's something to this, and maybe what's in their spirit starts, you know, poking what's in his spirit and starts like softening that heart. And so it makes me really happy. And, you know, I just wanted to share another update to the saga. So I can't wait to actually watch to watch the debate. But I'm glad to see them all hanging out and conversing and celebrating Alex and doing the kind thing, getting him the cake, and it's just really nice. And then David just jokingly says like he's bribing him. That's just David's way. Anyway, let's move on to the Rachel Lindsay thing. So again, I know I've talked about this topic a lot with the Snow White movie. I'm not going to talk about Rachel Zegler today. I'm going to talk about Rachel Lindsay. I saw Ben Shapiro play this clip on his show, and they're like, whoever this random podcaster. And I'm like, they have a pretty decent sized podcast. I'm like, do you not know who she is? Like, I can understand him not knowing a lot of folks. And, you know, he'd have like knew what the Breakfast Club was like a year or two ago. I think Ben should go on the Breakfast Club. That'll be fun. That would be fun. Um, that'd be so fun to watch. But I became familiar with Lindsay because she got Chris Harrison fired from The Bachelor. And you might be like, what does she have to do with The Bachelor? She was on The Bachelor. She was like the first Black bachelorette. So let me go ahead and cue this up because they were talking about Snow White, and so her opinion is that they shouldn't have never even remade it at all because I guess there's problematic things in the original one compared to like other Disney films might have problematic things, but this one's all the way in 1937, so this one just had a lot of different issues, and I guess they should have just left it alone according to her. And I just wanted to comment on her commentary about all this. Before this, she mentioned like a couple of things about some of the drama with the film, and she hasn't. It didn't sound like she's followed it as closely as like I followed it talked about. But anyway, let's pick off. I think this is the right spot.
Trying to make sure they get things right, but let's be honest. This movie should have never been made. Do you agree or not? They should never have remade this movie, is what I mean.
What do you mean?
This is not I know
you're
that
talking about because of
we're all into like the live, is that we got live animation?
they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, and it's very popular and it's profitable, so I understand it. And Snow White, when it came out, was huge. Like I think Walt Disney was able to buy like all this land because of the way that they profited off of that movie back in 1937. But that movie has so many problems where we were in 1937 versus 2025, more than the other Disney movies, that this should have never been a movie to remake in light of where we are culturally right now. Because think about it. When Snow White goes into the forest to run away from the queen who wants to kill her, because she's so perfect because her skin is white as snow.
Right.
One problem. She goes.
It's not just that her skin is as white as snow. That was a description for Snow White, for sure. But the queen is older than this young woman, and she's just jealous. She's really vain, and she can't take the fact that there's someone who is out there who is prettier than her. Like, it's not just about, oh, this woman is whiter than me. So this is already a reach. It's already a reach. If you find like skin as white as snow as to be like an issue because the Mirror apparently thought that was an attractive quality, that's not a social commentary on what is beauty. Now, if you want to say it's 1937 and a lot of people were racist back then, I will not fight you on that for sure. I won't because there are a lot of racist people back then. But I saw a video the other day, and it was a historical like costume designer or something that was talking about Snow White and the original look in the film, and asking whether or not it was like historically accurate for the time. And it wasn't. There's like elements that were correct for that era, like some of the things with like her puffy sleeves or whatever, and the little kind of slits in them where the fabric would poke out and you'd see that it was like layered with the different colors or whatever, like those sorts of things. But the film is very dated in being, you can tell that people from 1937 made it because of the style and the different things that they're putting in the film. Like her little shoes, the high-heeled shoes that she was wearing, a lot of, and the costume designer pointed out that a lot of different pictures you'd see from that era, the dresses would be very long, you wouldn't see the shoes, but she has these little high-heeled shoes with the bows on them or whatever that are very reminiscent of shoes that you would see in the 30s at the time. Or even her short hairstyle like that, it's to be similar to like people like Hedy Lamarr, so those were like the fashion styles and choices of that era. So it's a fairy tale. and a reimagine. Disney doesn't make original stuff. And they're going off of that and repurposing and reimagining those things. But the reason why the queen wanted to kill her is because she's the evil stepmother, and she's older, and the girl is Snow White is younger. I mean, and at the end, to even kill her, she, there's this, cool kind of thing that they do where she becomes this really ugly hag to kill her, and then she dies that way. Like, she's ruined her own beauty because she was so, jealous and just ugly inside, so there's that. First of all,
Finds the dwarf's house. She cooks, she cleans the house, right? And
Yeah,
why does she
damn
get to
right.
stay? Because she agrees to cook and clean for them.
Pull your weight. Pull your weight.
For these 7 men.
Yeah.
She had to earn her keep, but she couldn't earn. Why couldn't she go mine with them? Why couldn't she go work? Why couldn't she go hi ho, hi ho? Then
wait. So that's the next point. I'm like, she stumbled upon their house. She went into their house. She got into their bed. Well, she cleaned up some, and then she went to sleep. She's a trespasser. She trespassed on them. And then she did cook and she did clean, and they went to the mines. That's what they were already doing, and she, as he said, pulled her weight. I don't know if he was kind of agreeing or disagreeing at that kind of moment, but like she was pulling her weight when she came in there after she trespassed. And at first she thought they were kids, and she's like, "Oh, they're little men." Is that terrible? That they go off to the mines? To the mines? You want the princess to go and get black lung working in the mines or somewhere, whatever? What makes you think she wants to go to the mines and mine for diamonds? Like, she'd probably like to have them. I don't know. Like, she was kicked off of basically, her role as actually being able to be the princess and live, glamorously, and they made her like a slave to clean and do all those sorts of things. So she knew how to do it. So she's utilizing a skill she already has. Like, she's making pies, wonderful little pies with the birds. Why is that an issue? Why is it an issue? So my issue with Lindsay's video here, I mean Rachel Lindsay, that's her name, Rachel Lindsay, sorry. With Rachel's video here is that these elements, according to her, are problematic and should not have been retold and remade because there's all these issues with it. And your big issue is that she cooked and cleaned while the men went out there to do work. What about all the women who want to stay home to do that and have that arrangement? There are so many women who want to do that but can't afford to do that. I talked to somebody the other day who they left their job. They're about to have a baby and stuff, and they're happy to be able to stay home, and they're talking about all the kinds of reasons why it's just really expensive to be a working mom anyway, and they'd rather just be at home with their kids. A lot of women would like to do that. I know there's a lot of girl bosses out there, and that's what Disney wants to celebrate and promote and whatever now. But that's not an old-fashioned sentiment that should just be thrown away in the dark. Like, she applied a skill that she had and was valuable to these men. And then she like civilized them too, because she's like, "Oh, you gotta wash your hands," and kind of like friendly nagged them a bit, just to because they would just go to work and they were kind of gross. But she civilized them, and that's how it. That those are the messages that we kind of put out there, that men need women for all kinds of different reasons, and women do help to socialize and civilize men. So We'll see what else she has to say.
They were pitting two women against each other over jealousy, over beauty. Beauty was the defining factor of a woman.
Oh, that never happens, right?
Beauty was I'm not saying none. It doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
Beauty was the defining factor.
It's not outdated though. It's not. So he is being a balance there, countering her. Yeah. So that's not new. That's not new. I put out a video about Rachel Zegler on TikTok the other day, and one of her fans was like, "You've been talking about her since 2003, and it's because you're jealous." I'm like, "What the freak?" So people will assume and go that route anyway. And I'm like, "What? She doesn't have anything that I want. I don't want to be an actress playing Snow White." And I'd be like, "That's weird because I'm big and black anyway. Like I and not a child. I can't pass for one." And neither can Rachel, but like I'm definitely not the age range for that. So I'm like, what? I'm like, I talk about news and politics and pop culture and social commentary. Like, why would this not be in my wheelhouse for an actress playing Snow White who uses her platform as an actress, including like specifically the Snow White one, just to talk about things like Free Palestine and this is the morals of the original film, and like, why would that not be in my wheelhouse? But that is, a lot of women are jealous. A lot of women are upset, about certain women. Like sometimes you'll see, especially if you're on social media a lot, you'll see people have pointed out, like you can see videos of big girls or something, and people in the comments be like, "Yes, Queen Slay," or whatever, blah blah blah, and then like a similar video of someone thin and or whatever, and people have all these kind of negative comments to say, like, sometimes women could be so catty about that stuff. And they I wouldn't even say it's fair to say they pit two women against each other. There is one woman who came after the most innocent person, who pitting against each other is like what they try to do when it's like the queen versus like the girl boss. Because I mean, she like led a revolution or a mob into the castle, and in the new film or whatever. Snow White was just literally trying to exist and be sweet to everyone around her. The queen was coming after, persecuting her, and other folks rose up on her behalf to avenge her when she tried to kill her. So I wouldn't even say it's accurate to say you pit two women against each other. One woman was trying to kill another, a young woman.
Factor of what made a woman great and desirable. That was it. Obviously, the depiction
and
of
let me pull that back a little bit.
To the forest to run away from the queen who wants to kill her because she's so perfect, because her skin is white as snow.
Right.
One problem. She goes, finds the dwarf's house. She cooks, she cleans the house, right? And why does she get to stay? Because she agrees to cook and clean for them.
Pull your weight. Pull your weight.
For these 7 men.
Yeah.
She had to earn her keep, but she couldn't earn. Why couldn't she go mine with them? Why couldn't she go work? Why couldn't she go hi ho, hi ho? Then they were pitting two women against each other over jealousy, over beauty. Beauty was the defining factor of a woman.
Oh, that never happens, right?
Beauty was I'm not saying none. It doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
Okay.
Beauty was the defining factor.
So I wanted to point this out because that is not the story of Snow White. That is not the story of Snow White. The queen was still beautiful. And Snow White was beautiful. But she wasn't just beautiful on the outside. She was beautiful on the inside and was kind to everyone. And she changed everyone for the better. She changed the lives of those dwarves. She inspired that prince to search for her. Like he was searching for her through the seasons to find that maiden and wept over her. Didn't know that the kiss was going to bring her back to life. He just, did it to say goodbye. And then he got on his knees and like mourned. And then she happened to wake up and like, oh my gosh, thank God. But these men were willing to pick up their pickaxes and go chase an evil witch monster off of a cliff, which would have been a much more exciting end to the film than what Disney decided to do. So Snow White just being pretty, that is not just what the movie's about. It's not. And that's not not the most valuable thing that you learn. That's not the lesson to take away. Like, if that's your lesson that you take away, you are in the perspective of the evil queen, because she was the one obsessed with beauty, and she couldn't take it that there was someone else who was growing up and, and becoming the most fair of them all. And like, how many times in real life can you think about someone who's older, who's kind of like phasing out of life, and there's like a new generation coming up, and they just kind of can't take that, and instead of fostering that relationship, instead of like, hey, I'm the queen but you're the princess, you're obviously next in line, or maybe ought to be the ruler or whatever. Let me try to help you to learn things. Let me teach you to lead this kingdom or whatever. She didn't even teach her and take her under the wing to become an evil maiden or whatever. She just was like, I hate this chick. Let me demoralize her by, instead of treating like a princess, I'm going to make her like a servant. Not even like a servant. I'm going to put her in rags. So it's not that she has to do the task. She has to dress in the rags too. That's when she saw the prince, she was a little startled when she saw it, but then she like went inside of the castle and was looking at her clothes, like, oh my god, because this prince just saw her, this handsome prince who could sing, who doesn't like a man who could sing, and she's dressed in rags. So there is jealousy, but I don't think it's just about the beauty thing. But if you're just stuck on your only value is beauty, you'd probably be the evil queen in the mirror. if that's all you got from the film. If that's all you got from the film.
Of what made a woman great and desirable. That was it. Obviously, the depiction of the dwarfs. Oh. In order for her...
Wait, what do you mean, obviously, the depiction of the dwarves? What do you mean, obviously, the depiction of the dwarves? Are you talking about the heroes of the story? Are you talking about the literal heroes of the story? Because it wasn't the prince who hunted. He wasn't like Prince, what was that, Philip in Sleeping Beauty, who's just like with the swords and fighting the vines and all that stuff to you attack Maleficent and getting this girl. I haven't seen Snow White, Sleeping Beauty in a long time, but that was never one of my favorites. But Philip was, he's going in on it. And I don't have an issue with this prince or whatever, but he's not the hero of the film. Like, he did True Love's Kiss, good on that, but it was the dwarfs. It's called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They share the title together. It's about her relationship with them. What do you mean their depiction? Like, what? They went after the queen after she gave her the apple and were ready to go. No one had to give them a rousing speech. They went in action and they took out the evil queen, leading the way to restoring her kingdom and her living happily ever after with her prince. They are the heroes of the story. What do you mean? What do people mean when they say this stuff? And I know Peter Dinklage had an issue and he ranted, and I don't even understand like where all that anger was coming from. Because now there's actual people with dwarfism who are like protesting the movie and upset, and they got CGI dwarves anyway. Like, what does that mean? They're the heroes.
To be happy.
And you know what? And that's another thing about them using the CGI dwarves. They're all like title screen build together. And the movie's like Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. And it's like, no, the movie is about the dwarves too. And then they just made them CGI. I mean, there's real actors who are like doing screen capture stuff, but I don't even think they use like um, you know, little people or doors or whatever in that either. So anyway, let's keep going.
She had to find the love of a prince. In order for her to wake up, she was this damsel in distress. She had to be rescued by a man in order to go on and live this beautiful, happy life. Only a man could save her. The movie is problematic, which is why.
And okay, so it wasn't just that only a man could save her. It was true love saved her. I don't even think they mention in it specifically that it's true love's kiss. I mean, obviously he did kiss her or whatever. He had to find her, but she was, so what? Like, women want romance, they want affection, they want families. Many of them want to stay home and cook and clean and take care of the children, and the men go to work, do the hard jobs, mining, and they can come home to a baked apple flipping pie. Like, whoop-de-doo. Many women want that. And you know why I find this friggin' rich? Do you know why I find this so freaking rich, guys? I know who this person is. She's famous because she was on The Bachelorette. She's famous because she was looking for a man. And Snow White is problematic. Snow White is problematic because she had one true love who came to give her a kiss. How many men was Rachel kissing on The Bachelorette? Okay. How many dudes were you kissing, Rachel? To find your dude? Like, and you have the nerve to call her problematic. This is why, like, I don't know if Ben Shapiro, and he was talking to Michael Knowles about this, and they didn't mention anything about her background. They didn't even say her name. They just said a random podcaster. So I don't know if they were being I don't know, poking fun, pretending like they didn't know her. I think it's most likely that they probably didn't, even though they probably have. I'd be surprised if Ben or somebody didn't cover the stuff in the past. I'd be very surprised. But I don't need a bachelorette having the nerve to criticize Miss Snow White. And then she's talking about she needed a man to save her. Talk about victim blaming. She was poisoned by a magical apple. She was poisoned by a magical apple. But she did desire for her prince to come. And because, I mean, she sang her sweet little song in the cottage while she was baking the pie and stuff. So, yeah, that's a dream she had. Many women have that dream. And there's nothing wrong with that dream. Do you know how many women are working and are like, man, I just want a rich guy to come and I want my high value man. Do you know how many women say that and believe that and want that out of life? My gosh. My gosh. Someone said timestamp, the mic grab. I'm okay. That's when I was like, I gotta talk about this. When she dared to mention she got saved by a man. I need your love. Okay, Miss Bachelorette.
Rachel, who
Ziegler,
played Snow White, spoke out about it. How she talked about the problems with the past movie. She talked about how her representation of it and the things that they changed. But of course, that was going to be met with controversy and backlash, as some of the other movies that they did remade and the recast in certain ways. But this one, it wasn't even just the backlash from the people who have a problem with the wokeness of it. It was woke, also what they had to change with the 7 dwarves and all of that. I mean, people were down to the wig, calling out her wig.
Yeah.
They were calling her Lord Farquaad.
Okay. So I guess, okay. So
should never been remade.
So we don't need to watch the rest. I mean, I haven't, but we'll call it at that. When Rachel pointed out some of the things that were different from the movie, when she's like, it's on 1937, and she was stalked by a guy, and people didn't like that. And I pointed out the other day that Gal Gadot was like saying things like she's not going to be saved by the prince, and Rachel was really like downplaying romance. Like we could write the whole guy out, and they probably had to add stuff back in there after some of the backlash or whatever. But her love interest wasn't even a prince. He was like a criminal bandit or whatever. And who sang to her a song called Princess Problems. Like it was like a check your privilege song. And so yeah, people had an issue with her trashing things about the film, but in her trashing things about the film, it's clear, and she had admitted that she didn't really like it or hadn't really watched it, and there was a ride, a Snow White ride or whatever, that terrified her. So it's not like she's dreamed her whole life of maybe being Snow White or whatever. But she just really didn't understand the film, and it sounds to me like Rachel here doesn't really. This other Rachel doesn't really understand the film either, and a lot of the things that are in the film are timeless. And you know, we inject so much of our modern worldview and aesthetics into so many things in the past, and we try to, I don't know, make ourselves triggered and irritated by every little sort of thing instead of taking like good lessons that are actually there in the bones of a lot of these things. But saying you don't need a man, and the like being upset about the true love, and that she didn't go work in the mines, like as if modern women can't relate to Snow White. Like, please, like, how many girls be like, one day my prince will come, like, or I hope my prince will come. Oh my gosh, where's my freaking prince? Like, why is he taking so long? Like, come on. But again, she's from The Bachelorette. So she's the reason why Chris Harrison was fired from The Bachelor. And Chris Harrison was with them for years. And so if you guys don't remember that controversy, you guys can go back and find this article from my website. But because I had to go back to it and refresh a little bit, because I'm like, I know her for a reason. He even tried to do a little, not even a little, but tried to be reformed and go on an apology tour and take like the woke kind of like accountability training or whatever, and it still didn't work. He got fired from The Bachelor. Harrison, okay, what happened was Harrison asked the world to have grace for contestant Rachel Kirkconnell. After fans went scouring through her social media, outrage spawned from a college party in 2018 with an antebellum theme. During an interview with Rachel Lindsay, the first Black Bachelorette, Harrison said he would press Kirkconnell to find the truth, but the internet saw Harrison as excusing racism by noting millions of people did the same thing in 2018, and in 2021 has different standards. So, yeah, he said, let's have some grace for this girl, and people were mad at him. Harrison thought he was having an honest, an open conversation, but Lindsay admitted in another interview with The Ringer, she was probing Harrison, essentially giving him a rope to hang himself. Lindsay said she was boiling when Harrison suggested having grace for Kirkconnell rather than victims like herself who were hurt by Kirkconnell's actions. Rachel Lindsay is not a victim because Kirkconnell went to a party and put on an old dress. That's my commentary, whatever. But yeah, if you don't remember that controversy, it was a big deal. Harrison was with, you know, the franchise for a long time. He was the face of The Bachelor, and this former contestant like set him up to get canceled. So that's how I'm aware of Miss Rachel. PH said I should splice the mic grab into the intro. I have to remake my intro. I did find my one of the files for it, but I cannot find all of the clips that were used, so a lot of things are like blacked out on Adobe when I tried to do it, so I might have to remake the whole thing from scratch. There's some I don't know. I had some cameos from people that I took pictures with that are in it, and I don't necessarily want all of them in there anymore. And I might want to put in other things in there, like my interview with I Am Racist, and I don't really want my picture with the Hodge twins in there anymore. But but it's just it took a while to make. So it'll be interested at being a little different, but I don't know if I'm gonna do the mic grab. Maybe I will if you guys like it that much. But when I saw that part in the interview, I was like, you just have some nerve. You have some nerve. Like, you were on the Bachelor. I think Bachelorette, and I think she was she started off probably on the Bachelor. So because that's usually, they don't usually pluck you out of nowhere. Usually you're like a contestant or something, and then they give you your own show. So what she must have been, Rachel Lindsay. So yeah, she was on The Bachelor in the 21st season, and then she was in The Bachelorette in the 13th season, and she was the first African American in the Bachelor franchise, I guess, to be like the head. So so not only was she a bachelorette and had all these men competing for her because she wanted her dream guy, looking for love, she was willing to compete with other women for the affection of a guy. So I don't know. I think that's more problematic and than a girl eating a poison apple and a guy that she has an established relationship finding her, searching for her. Some of your guys won't even return your text messages, and he was searching through the seasons for this girl, and he found her. I just think you got some nerve talking about Snow White. It could have easily been remade by Disney, and the story of Snow White in general has been remade several times. We saw, I've never seen Mirror Mirror, but people bring that up as if that's like the best one. Snow White and the Huntsman was pretty good. And then there was this next film after that. But then there's Once Upon a Time. And Once Upon a Time covered a lot of these, characters or whatever. And Regina Mills, who was the actress Lana who played her, she just did such a fabulous job as the evil queen. I don't know how many people can really like outshine her in that role. And Jennifer, who played Snow White, was just like so great in that role, and she was like the it girl at the time for a lot of different romantic movies. So it just made sense. And they took things that were great about the original stuff, and then a lot of times they just expounded on it. They put different twists in it. And they did make Snow more of a girl boss, who could fight and would go rescue Prince Charming, whatever, would rescue her. It was like a mutual relationship there, but she was still very kind and very sweet and very full of hope. And, and they really, really, they had a thing like, they're finders, like, he's gonna find me, she's gonna find me, I know you'll find me, like, and that was an ongoing theme. So once did it great. People continue to redo these films. I think it's a shame that Disney is so interested in redoing their stuff and making so many changes and not honoring their original property. To me, that's strange. To me, that's weird. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand doing a live action version of Your Little Mermaid and she looks totally different than the mermaid that you made famous or whatever and iconic. Whatever, it's your choice, but to me it's strange. I don't get Disney, but they can do what they want to do. Unfortunately for Disney, it's not a success as of now, and it doesn't look like it's going to be. But anyway, people were very emotionally attached to that film at the time. in 1937, first like colored film that a lot of people saw. It really revolutionized the industry. It was, sweet, something that was very special to Walt Disney. Did a lot for the company, and what they made going forward. And people were weeping in the theater when she ate the apple, and they thought she died because they had an emotional connection to Snow White. I had a Snow White doll. I had the dwarves. I had the pillowcase in the sheets and all that stuff. So, it's just too unfortunate that people don't they don't get it. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. What is Disney's current goal? Is that with the movie, or in general with the with their products? Because I don't know. I don't know. I think they've decided to revamp how they outlook on life, because they've had a string of things that weren't successful. But Snow White's been in the remaking for a minute. I think if they were about to start that project today, knowing kind of the social turns that were occurring, it would probably be a different film. But it's a little too late. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost a stream, run the site, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. I encourage you guys to also check out different merch that's available on the website, because that does also help support and so on. So you guys can check out that stuff. I encourage you guys to also check out my books that are available on the website. I have 18 that are all together. Well, on Black Tea News, there's a link that'll take you to my book website on the merchandise page, but there's a link in the description that'll take you to not a YouTube, but Amazon page. So go ahead and check out that stuff. I encourage you guys to have a good weekend. Please be safe. Don't do anything. I would say don't do anything I wouldn't do, but there's fun things you can do that I wouldn't do. So just be safe out there, and hopefully I get to see you guys in the chat on Monday. God bless.